Understanding divine silence involves exploring the notion that God's lack of immediate response or perceived absence in moments of need has purpose and meaning. This concept challenges believers to interpret silence not as abandonment, but as an opportunity for spiritual growth, reflection, and a deeper relationship with the divine. Divine silence is significant because it addresses the existential questions and doubts that arise during life's trials, encouraging individuals to seek faith and understand the greater plan beyond immediate circumstances. One example of divine silence can be found in the biblical story of Job, who endured immense suffering without receiving a direct explanation from God. This silence forced Job to confront his own faith and understanding of divine justice, ultimately leading him to a deeper appreciation of God's wisdom and sovereignty. Another example is the life of Mother Teresa, who experienced decades of spiritual desolation despite her unwavering dedication to serving others. Her perseverance amidst divine silence demonstrates how faith can remain steadfast even when immediate comfort is absent. Supporters of this idea argue that divine silence is a test of faith, emphasizing the importance of trust in God's ultimate plan. Silence can act as a catalyst for personal transformation, prompting introspection and fostering resilience. Critics, however, may view divine silence as a source of doubt and ambiguity, questioning the benevolence of a deity that allows suffering and silence during critical moments. This skepticism can lead to the belief that divine silence contradicts the notion of a loving and attentive God. The main challenge with understanding divine silence is reconciling the human desire for instant answers and comfort with the idea that spiritual growth often requires patience and trust in the unseen. Alternative viewpoints suggest that silence may not be divine at all, but a product of human misinterpretation or even the absence of a deity. This concept of divine silence influences other aspects of faith, such as the value of prayer and meditation. It encourages believers to focus more on listening and being present, rather than expecting immediate responses. It also ties into the broader theme of why God allows suffering, as both involve the belief that there is a higher purpose and plan at play, even when it is not immediately understood. By embracing divine silence, believers are invited to deepen their faith, finding strength in the unseen and trusting in the mysterious ways of the divine. The purpose of silence in spiritual growth can be seen as a profound and transformative aspect of one's spiritual journey. Silence in this context is not merely the absence of sound, but an intentional retreat from the noise of daily life to foster a deeper connection with the divine and oneself. It serves as a sacred space for introspection, reflection, and communion with God, allowing individuals to listen more intently to their inner voice and divine guidance. In the realm of spirituality, silence holds significant importance as it acts as a catalyst for personal and spiritual development. By embracing silence, individuals can distance themselves from external distractions and the cacophony of thoughts that often cloud their minds. This quietude encourages a heightened awareness and presence, essential for discerning spiritual truths and cultivating a closer relationship with God. For instance, many spiritual traditions around the world incorporate periods of silence in their practices. Consider the monastic retreats where individuals withdraw from the world to engage in silent contemplation. Such experiences often lead to profound spiritual insights and breakthroughs. Another example is the use of silence in meditation, which can help practitioners achieve a state of inner peace and clarity. Through these real-world applications, the value of silence in spiritual growth becomes evident, allowing individuals to deepen their faith and understanding. Various opinions from spiritual leaders and philosophers underscore the importance of silence in spiritual growth. For example, Mother Teresa emphasized that God speaks in the silence of the heart. Her perspective highlights how silence can serve as a medium through which people can hear divine messages that elude them in everyday life. However, embracing silence is not without its challenges. In a world that celebrates busyness and constant stimulation, the concept of silence might be met with skepticism or discomfort. Some may view silence as unproductive or even daunting, especially if it leads to confrontations with unresolved inner feelings or questions. Despite these challenges, the practice of silence can influence other aspects of spiritual growth, such as patience, humility, and empathy. By developing a habit of seeking silence, individuals can enhance their ability to listen empathetically to others and act with greater compassion. In this way, the purpose of silence extends beyond personal edification. It nurtures a holistic change that impacts both individual spirituality and interpersonal relationships. Silence thus emerges as a crucial pillar in the intricate structure of spiritual development, offering depth and richness to one's journey with God. The concept of the role of silence in building faith and trust centers around the idea that silence from God, rather than being a mere absence, can serve as a fertile ground for strengthening one's faith and developing deeper trust in divine wisdom. In this context, silence is not a sign of neglect or disinterest from God, but an integral part of spiritual growth, where individuals are compelled to rely on their intrinsic faith and cultivate trust in God's larger plan. The significance of this point lies in its ability to transform a potentially perplexing experience, God's silence, into an opportunity for profound spiritual development. When believers encounter silence, they find themselves in a space where they must actively exercise their faith without external assurances. It challenges them to deepen their trust in God's timing and wisdom, reinforcing their resilience in the face of uncertainty. Consider the biblical story of Job, who, amidst his suffering and God's silence, maintained his faith and ultimately experienced a restoration far beyond his initial state. His ability to trust in silence became a testimony of unwavering faith. Another example is Mother Teresa, who expressed enduring God's silence through much of her ministry. Despite this, her trust in God's presence propelled her to continue her compassionate work, impacting countless lives. These examples illustrate how silence can precipitate faith growth and trust even in the absence of immediate answers. Supporters of this perspective, such as theologian Henry Nouwen, argue that silence invites introspection and deeper communion with God, emphasizing that it's in the absence of overt communication that faith is tested and refined. However, challenges to this view exist, as some argue that divine silence can lead to doubt and a feeling of abandonment, particularly for those early in their faith journey or those enduring severe trials. Critics maintain that silence should not be romanticized, as it may push individuals away instead of drawing them closer to God. This concept interweaves with other aspects of the main topic, such as understanding God's nature and purposes. By interpreting silence as an intentional divine tool, believers can forge a more mature, well-rounded understanding of their relationship with God. Instead of seeing silence as a void, it becomes a dynamic part of spiritual dialogue, encouraging believers to seek God more fervently, immerse themselves in Scripture, and develop a robust, trusting faith that holds firm in the face of life's uncertainties. Silence as a period of preparation is often perceived as a divinely orchestrated pause that serves to ready individuals for future endeavors and challenges. This concept suggests that during times when God appears silent, individuals are given the opportunity for introspection, growth, and spiritual strengthening. It's a time to build resilience and foster a deeper understanding of one's purpose and potential. The significance of silence as a period of preparation in the context of why God allows silence is profound. It posits that silence is not necessarily a sign of abandonment or neglect, but rather an intentional space for inner development and reflection. Just as a seed must remain buried in silence before it can sprout, individuals often need quiet periods to mature and prepare for forthcoming phases of life. A real-world example can be found in the lives of great leaders and visionaries, many of whom have experienced significant periods of silence or obscurity before stepping into their roles. Consider Moses from the biblical narrative, who spent years in the desert before leading the Israelites. This time allowed him to become the leader he was destined to be. Another example is the life of Nelson Mandela, who endured 27 years of imprisonment. This period of enforced silence was pivotal in transforming him into a leader poised to guide South Africa peacefully into the post-apartheid era. Opinions supporting this idea often come from spiritual leaders and thinkers who propose that divine silence can enrich faith and patience. They argue that these periods can enhance personal growth more effectively than periods filled with constant guidance and activity. However, this view is not without its challenges. Some might argue that silence can lead to feelings of isolation and doubt, questioning the benevolence of a deity that would allow suffering and uncertainty. Alternative perspectives may assert that silence isn't always beneficial, suggesting that proactive engagement rather than passive waiting can be more productive. Critics might argue that waiting on divine intervention during silent periods can lead to complacency. This concept connects closely to other aspects of understanding divine silence, such as seeing silence as a test of faith or as a time for learning to trust in divine timing. Ultimately, viewing silence as preparation can transform how individuals approach these quiet periods, encouraging them to harness silence for personal and spiritual development rather than seeing it as mere absence or neglect. This enriched understanding can further support individuals in navigating life's various challenges with greater insight and resilience. Like and follow for more. Comment below what you want the team to pray for you.